welcome back to AM Northwest. Opposite money management styles can really complicate a marriage. So here with advice for those in a contentious spender versus saver relationship, we're happy to welcome back financial advisor Judith McGee. Nice to have you back. Let's talk about first, saver spender. What are we talking about?
Well, it's really difficult if you've got an idea that security is important to you, and you're married to somebody that doesn't have a budget in mind, just spends the money, you can't control things, and that, really affects your own personal security going forward. It's not a fun place to be.
Can a saver be married to a spender and have it work out?
Yes.
How so? What is it that you have to do?
Well, what you do is you have to, if you think about it, marriage is a financial partnership. So partnerships have to have some kind of rules around them. So if you can talk about money in such a way that the spending side is a certain part of the budget, no questions asked. I have a method called the put and take plan. So you put money in and you take it out, but that kind of money is discretionary spending. And if you allow in a partnership, this marriage or any relationship really, if you have some of the money that's no questions asked, you can spend it, but it's limited to maybe 10% of your take-home pay. And it works at any income level. So each person gets 10%. They do with what they want with it. Maybe one decides to suck it away for security, and the other decides to go to Nordstrom's.
But that happens after you sit down together and create a budget of priorities. Is that right? So you've got to save for retirement, you've got to save for vacation, whatever it may be.
Right, but if you think about it, people don't usually argue over the things like a mortgage payment, the things that are fixed. We all get along for that. So that, is a certain percentage of your money. Maybe it's 50%, maybe it's 70%. About 20% of what you have coming in, no matter what the income level, people kind of see that as discretionary. It's stuff that you don't have to spend, and they're wants, not needs. So that's the area where you can say, okay, no questions asked, we're each going to have our own put and take account.
Got it.
All right, so let's talk too about, sometimes people inherit money, and there's always the different spouses have different expectations about how that money should be split up.
This is a big one because it really comes up in divorce cases. Let's say you've been married for 30 years and all of a sudden mom and dad dies and you're going to get a windfall. Well, I have seen cases where the divorce is filed before that windfall comes. Now, Oregon has a new law around this that the divorce attorneys can explain to you where it might not be so sacred. But if you inherit money in a relationship in the state of Oregon, you have the opportunity to keep that money separate. It can be outside the marital pot.
Even if you're currently involved in a happy marriage.
Right, but you can choose that. And also a spouse can either disclaim a right to property, either community or marital property, or you can commingle it. Lots of people commingle, but it isn't always the right thing to do, and it's not always what people want to do.
When would it not be the right thing to do to commingle inherited money?
In many cases, well, from a tax standpoint, if the estate is very large, they may want to keep it separate. Or if some of the assets, let's say you're a doctor and your wife has stayed at home for years and years and years, but most of your assets are in a retirement plan. They're all titled under the husband. So perhaps the new money that comes in the marriage should be only in the wife's side. Thereby, both have an estate, both have the ability to manage under the current gift tax laws.
I would think, too, that having stepkids or blended families could also add to the financial stress of any family.
Well, there's multiple layers of discussion there, but the thing is that, again, it's the conversation. Who's responsible for what? It's his, hers, and ours kids. Suppose college education was planned with prior marriage. Does this current spouse have any obligation? Bring it up for discussion. Make sure it's well understood because it can create resentment.
There's a new reality in our economy today, and that is that in many homes, the woman is the breadwinner. Even if both spouses work, she's making more money. That's happening more and more. How does that change the dynamic of spenders and savers?
When I first started researching that area, there about 1 in 4 women were the primary breadwinner. Now it's 1 in 3.
Mm-hmm.
So you're absolutely right. And here we have the traditional roles, husband, protector, provider, wife, nurturer, has a different role. Today, those roles are confused and mixed, and in the younger generation, they've even worked it out, so they are co-parenting much better than the older generations did. So absolutely, when the female in the family is the highest breadwinner, it means that the relationship has to be well understood on what the role is for each. And it may not be a typical role, but each has to have their own role. For instance, my husband loves to grocery shop. So he's providing by bringing the food into the house, just like a hunter-gatherer situation. But as long as those roles are respected, you'll find that a lot of people work in kind of a territorial way, that they'll say, you take care of the outside of the house and I take care of the inside. Similar things with money. Sometimes one party will be writing the checks and paying the bills, and the other may be the primary investment person in the family. So roles should be defined, but also we ought to have a lot of conversation around it.
Absolutely. All right, we'll put the information too on our website at k2.com.
Thank you
very
so
much.
much.